Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. You know, when a friend or a relative, a loved one, a fellow Christian falls into tragedy and encounters tragedy, one of the first things we become concerned about is their faith. We begin to wonder, what is their faith going to be like? Is their faith going to remain intact through this tragedy? And this could be whether it's a person who was already kind of faltering in their faith, or even a person who was strong in faith and who had been serving the Lord. The fear is that they will take it personal and think, well, how can God allow this to happen to me after I've been serving Him all these years? And that they'll walk away from the Lord. And it's always like a breath of fresh air when we hear them make a statement of faith after the tragedy. It's almost we can breathe again and say, okay, they're going to be okay. Their faith is still intact. They're going to make it through. And what we find even more so than that is a lot of times their faith is a lot more solid and a lot more deep than it was before. Because their faith has been rubbed raw through the tragedy that they're enduring, and it has become more real. All the light, fluffy, feel-good, polished stuff is now rubbed off, and they get down to faith in the raw, in its most basic element. And now their faith is no longer about just making trite statements, quoting scriptures flippantly, but they have been through the furnace, and they've been through the darkness, and they know how precious faith really is, and they know how precious their relationship with God is, and they speak from that standpoint. And some of the things that they say are so profound, you think, wow, not only do they have their faith intact, but it has become stronger than ever. Well, if we were friends with Job, I do believe we would all be a little concerned about him. As we've read through some of the things that he has said, he's been very honest about how he feels. And some of the things would make us very much concerned about him, as it made his other friends very concerned. And we would think that, well, Job is losing his faith here. He's losing his faith in God. But dispersed among these sayings of Job are these wonderful and beautiful statements of faith that make us say, okay, Job's okay. He still has his faith. He's questioning things. He doesn't understand them, but he still has his faith. And some of these statements of faith are so profound that they can actually be seen as prophetic utterances that just come out. And so under the weight of this tragedy, this sorrow, this humble position that he's in, comes out these beautiful, beautiful words of faith. And we see that in our reading today. In Job chapter 19, starting in verse 23, this is what he says. He says, "Oh, that my words were written. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book, that with an iron stylus and lead they were engraved in the rock forever. As for me, I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will take his stand on the earth, even after my skin is destroyed. Yet from my flesh I shall see God, whom I myself shall behold, and whom my eyes will see, and not another. My heart faints within me." Wow, what a beautiful statement of faith that Job makes. At first he's talking about he wants his words inscribed on stone. He feels like his life is coming to an end. He feels like this is it. And he wants his words to be inscribed in stone so that they will last further than just his life. And that they would be kept as a witness to speak on his behalf. But even though he felt that things were coming to an end, he had confidence in something. He had confidence that his Redeemer lives, and at the last he would take his stand on the earth. And this becomes a prophetic utterance by Job, because we all know that the Redeemer did come, and he took his stand on the earth. Matter of fact, that word "stand" is the same word that's used in the Hebrew for someone who rises up, like someone who rises from the dead. And I can't say, with confidence that Job is speaking about the resurrection of Christ here, but we do know that that did take place, that Christ did rise up from the dead and take his stand on the earth. But it could also be talking about the second coming of Christ. And that would be even more closely tied to the context, because right after talking about the Redeemer taking his stand on the earth, it talks about the resurrection. In verse 26, even after my skin is destroyed, yet from my flesh I shall see God, whom I myself shall behold, and whom my eyes will see, and not another. This sounds very much like what we read in 1 John. In 1 John chapter 3, starting in verse 1, this is what John says. He says, see how great a love the Father has bestowed on us, that we would be called children of God. And such we are. For this reason the world does not know us, because it did not know him. Beloved, now we are children of God, and it has not appeared as yet what we will be. We know that when he appears, we will be like him, because we will see him just as he is. And everyone who has this hope fixed on him purifies himself just as he is pure. This is very similar to what Job is saying. My eyes will behold him. In my flesh I will see God. My Redeemer lives, and he will take his stand on the earth. Now, did Job really understand, the full implications of what he was saying? Maybe not. Who knows? Maybe in his mind he was just talking about a Redeemer that would come and help him in his current situation. That word Redeemer is the same Hebrew word used for the kinsman Redeemer, who was used for if you had to sell off your property, he could come and buy it back for you and restore it back to you. And so he's talking about restoration here. But nonetheless, we do know that the Holy Spirit is inspiring Job here through his sufferings, through his sorrows, to give this prophetic utterance about Christ. And we can look back on that and say, wow, Job, even in that hardship, even in that trial, even that humble position that he was in, still had a faith that could proclaim such bold things, and that would even speak of things that would come in many days in the future. And so what do we walk away with? Well, we want to be the type of people who keep our faith intact during the hard times. And to recognize the fact that just because sufferings come into your life, trials come into your life, doesn't mean you have to throw your faith away. It doesn't mean that you have to walk away from God. But what it does mean is that your faith can become stronger because it is tested by the fire. It becomes pure. It becomes more raw, more real, and a lot of times can produce greater things than it would have had you never had the trial or the tragedy, whatever it was. So let's just think about these things today. I do thank you guys for listening in today. I hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.